Welcome again to my grandmother's table. It's starting to look like fall in these mountains. And each year, we always bring a little bit of fall inside to my grandmother's table. It was a season of the year that she really loved. And it's my way of remembering the things that she used to do and in honoring those things and carrying them on. Today, I want to share from my heart one little verse. It is Zephaniah 3:17. I love this verse. I have for many, many years. It begins by saying, "The Lord your God is with you." Pretty simple arrangement of words, but such an impact in what they mean to us. The Lord your God is with you. Have you ever felt alone? I have. Whether I truly was alone or not, I have felt those feelings. Just that feeling of being alone. I've written a lot of things in my life, as old as I am now. But after my grandfather died, I wrote a little poem, and it was just a simple little poem that I wrote one afternoon when Anna and John Macon were at school. And it's called Never Alone. And when I showed it to my grandmother, she cried. I didn't expect that. And I said, oh, Memo, I did not mean to make you cry. I'm so sorry. And she said, oh, no, Nancy Lee, don't be sorry. I needed the Lord to remind me of His great and ever-present love for me. Never alone. There will never be a night so long, a darkness so deep that God cannot find you. Where you are is where He will be. The fear that overtakes you, the sadness that overwhelms you, will melt away to nothing in His presence. For the love that nailed His only Son to the cross is the same love that seeks you today. Undying love that whispers to a trembling heart, you are never alone. And my grandmother cried and I cried, and then we felt comforted in the Lord by the fact that we know, and as Zephaniah 3:17 begins, the Lord your God is with you. He is. The next step in this verse gives us a beautiful picture. He is mighty to save. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. I'm always checking the original languages with my husband. He is a theology professor. He reads Hebrew and Greek. And so, as I was reading Zephaniah 3:17 again, I had him check out the Hebrew for the words to save. And one of the options of the Hebrew meaning in the original language was to free. To free. And my mind as a mother immediately went to the pictures, the picture memories that I have of Anna and John Macon being little. And those wonderful, wonderful summer nights that they always wanted to stay out after dark and chase lightning bugs. We always did. Now, I was raised in the Deep South. And in the Deep South, one favorite food, especially in the summertime, is homemade pimento and cheese. We make it what seems like by the tons. I don't officially think you can have summer in the Deep South as a family without fried chicken and homemade pimento and cheese sandwiches. So, every time I made homemade pimento and cheese, I would buy the jars of pimentos at the store. And after I would mix everything up, I would take my little jar, the little glass jar, and I would wash it and dry it, wash the lid, dry the lid, put them back together, set them up in my cabinet. And each time I did that, I would smile and think, oh, what wonderful fun we're going to have together. When summer gets here, and after dark, we can chase those summer lightning bugs. So, we would race around the yard, and we would catch them. And if I caught one, I would carefully in my hands walk it over to either Anna or John Macon and slip it down into their little hands, and then let them put it into that little pimento jar. And we would watch them. And we would twirl them around, and they would light, and they would light, and they would light. And we had so much fun with that part of it. But the part that was probably more wonderful to us was after we had caught as many as we thought we could possibly catch in the yard, we would open the lid and let them go. Free them. We would set the lightning bugs free. Now I know from having lived 60 years now that times come in life when we can just get our foot caught in a snare. We can just get circumstances that just seem to impede our progress, hold us back. And sometimes that can feel like a really helpless feeling. But if we remember Zephaniah 3:17, that the Lord your God is with you, and He is mighty to save, He is mighty to free. That gives us a whole new perspective on the circumstances that we might find ourselves in. Don't forget that. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save, to free. Okay. Next it says, He will take great delight in you. I love to think about this. Have you ever pondered the question, what delights God? What does God delight in? I think it would be quite a challenge for us, for ourselves, to sit down. I've got a pen somewhere. To sit down when we do our Bible reading or have our quiet time for prayer and just meditating on the Word of God, to just make a list for our own use of things that we think God would delight in. But the one thing that I do seem to forget in this world from time to time is that God delights in me. If I thought of that more, well, it's just one of those things that impacts everything about the way that we live, impacts the things that we do, the things that we say. He will take great delight in you. So if you ever sit down and make a list of things that you think God might delight in, you make sure that you write in great big letters, you. Put your name down there. He delights in Nancy Lee. He delights in you. That is something to hold close. He will quiet you with His love. Do you ever feel fretful? Oh, I know. Probably not. It's probably just me that feels fretful occasionally. But I have, and I do sometimes. And I'm reminded again of those days when Anna and John Macon were small, and they would need a nap. That almost never happened at our house. It was a miracle when it did. But they would become so fretful. Not go to sleep, just become fretful. Nothing suited them when they got to that point. Not a toy, not a snack, a game, nothing. Nothing suited them. They were just fretful. And I would reach out my arms, reach out my hands, and I would say, "Oh, sweetie, come here. Come here and just let me hold you." Now, I will have to say honestly, and he knows it's the truth, Anna was a little bit easier to persuade to just come here and let me hold you than John Macon ever was. John Macon was like, "No, I don't think so." Because he knew as soon as he got still in my arms that he was going to be sound asleep. He just couldn't fight it anymore. So we have laughed many times through the years of me trying to comfort him when he was fretful, and him just saying, "Yeah, I'm good, I'm just going to go on." But I do like to think about that. Those times. Because I can see myself in Anna and John Macon. Maybe you can too. Those times when we just push and push and push ourselves to the point of just exhaustion and absolutely not knowing even what to do with our own selves. we are just so spent and become so fretful. But if we hold Zephaniah 3:17 close, and if we go back to it, when we see ourselves getting to that point of being so exhausted and spent and fretful, he reminds us that he will quiet you with his law. Oh my goodness. Yes, I know that I need that. And there are many times that I just stop what I'm doing and I say, Lord, you know where I am right now in whatever this situation is. And I need you to quiet me with your law. And he does. He does. Now, the last sentence in Zephaniah 3:17 says, he will rejoice over you with singing. I love to sing. I come from a family that loves to sing. I grew up singing with my mother. From my earliest memories, I remember my mother singing with me, to me first, and then with me when I could sing. Now, back in the 60s when I was a child, our car radios were certainly not what they are today. So the selection was not very great when we got in the car. Sometimes we would listen to it, but more often than not, my mother would reach and turn the radio off, and she would say, let's sing. And we did. Sometimes we made up the songs. Sometimes they were songs that we all knew well. But we sang together. And I have those wonderful memories of that. Last week, the picture on the wall of the old house. Well, as I said, I got to live in that house until I was 10 years old, and they tore it down to build my grandparents' new house on that spot. But on the front porch, toward this end, there was always a porch swing. And as you can probably tell from the picture, that old house didn't know the word insulation. So in the winter, it was terribly cold in those bedrooms when we tried to go to sleep at night. And in the summer, it was hot. If you have never experienced the heat and humidity, even at night, of a Mississippi summer, well, then it's going to be difficult for me to describe to you. But it was hot when we tried to go to sleep. And I was a little girl. And there were nights that my mother would look at me after she was pretty convinced that I wasn't just going to go ahead and drift off to sleep in all of that heat. And she would say, come on, let's go out on the front porch. And we would. I would follow her. We would get up out of bed, and I would follow her out onto that old front porch. And she would sit down in the swing, and I would crawl up beside her and then curl up and lay my head in her lap. And she would reach down with her hand, and she would stroke my hair, and she would start to push the swing. And the wonderful breeze that started as my mother pushed that swing back and forth as we sat there together. And the sound of her voice as she sang over me as I lay there with my head in her lap. Produced in me some of the most significant memories of well-being that I have ever had in my life. They are still incredibly, incredibly important to me. My mother singing softly and beautifully over me as that old swing, the chains creaked, and the night sounds of a Mississippi summer were all around us. And I was comforted by my mother singing over me. I can only imagine how much God Himself longs, desires, wants to have those moments with us as His children. To rejoice over us with singing. Have you ever thought about the singing voice of God? What it must sound like? Oh my goodness. The very thought of that is almost more than my heart can hold, because of the beauty of the thought. God singing over us as His children, like my mother sang over me in that old porch swing. I don't know about you, but I don't want to miss any moment with my God that He wants to have with me. I don't want to miss it. I wish I could say that I am always mindful of His presence, wanting and ready to have those tender moments with me as His child. But I'm afraid that throughout my life, there are many of those times that I have missed. Oh, I don't know, too busy, too hurried, just a mind full of other things. I don't know. I'm sure I could come up with a whole list of excuses as to why I missed those times. And I don't want to miss another moment ever of God rejoicing over me with singing. Zephaniah 3:17. I hope you spend some time with it. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. I hope this verse melts into your heart, beautifully melts into your heart. Just like all that wonderful butter used to melt into my grandmother's biscuits. And that Zephaniah 3:17 impacts your time with our God. Well, I'm glad we got to do this again. We'll try to get back together a week or so. Get us some coffee. Pull up our chairs. Sit down at my grandmother's table and encourage each other. Encourage each other to find encouragement in the beautiful things that God has to say to us as his children. And to continue to rest and trust in the one who loves us most. See you soon.